in the deep end of the behavior. We jumped in the deep end of the behavioral sciences together, a bit over a decade ago now, decade and a half, when Paul supervised my PhD. And we've been on a shared journey ever since. Met David, and I joined Paul and David on ProSocial World about 3 years ago, full time. And I'm now director of bespoke programs. And so I'm helping to facilitate some of the courses that Paul's speaking about, but also working with others to design bespoke initiatives for their organizations or sector.
Thank you. Peter, welcome. We're just doing a quick round of intros to say where you're from and, what interests you about this session. Might hand to Petri now.
Well, my interest to this started from your book. I just finished the book and then I went to your website and noticed that you are starting your courses, and that's how I became interested in this. My background, I've been working in a very different field. I've been working with interiors and design for some time. And at the same time, I've been studying solution-focused coaching. I also did some psychodrama in my past, but my interest in this is that it is in my plans to start providing coaching services next year. Right. So I was kind of looking for methods to coach groups, and from this I became interested in the ProSocial process. I also been studying acceptance based therapy, and I read a couple of books on that, and I'm planning to join also training in that field. So that's my background.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the intro, Petri. Gosh, the sun bright here.
You have sun, we don't.
I'm actually on a boat, so the sun is setting to the west of my boat. So, Gonzalo, would you be willing to say a little bit about?
Hey, good morning to me, good afternoon good night for the rest. I'm a little bit sleepy at the moment. I'm originally from Argentina. I am based in Barcelona. I am moving to Sweden in February, so that's more or less location-wise. I have done the Becoming ProSocial course with Paul, the last cohort. I'm interested because I'm moving to Sweden to work with two important projects that is very much related to prosociality, and one is a co-living of 100 people, change makers around the world with social impact, and I'll be working actually in creating the programs for the 100 people, and also creating the community, and I'll be like trying to apply ProSocial, but it's a bit of a challenge. You haven't got much experience. And then I'm part of the Inner Development Goals movement, which is, and I'm in charge of the ambassador program. I'm the producer and or coordinator of the ambassador program, which is basically a training for why is inner development important for planetary flourishing. So yeah, and two important projects that are very much related to prosociality. And I read the book, which I have next to me, and I love it. So here I am, interested to see how I can learn more. Wow. And I'm a medical doctor, by the way, and a psychotherapist in training.
Gosh, you've got a lot on, Gonzalo. Amazing you have the time. And I hadn't realized you were so instrumental in the intentional community. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, another conversation sometime. Renee, are you in a position where you can speak or not?
Yes, good morning.
Hello. Hi.
I'm still in bed, so that's why I'm not on cam.
No problem. That's okay. It's weird, isn't it, when you show up to a meeting and there's like 5 people there and you think, oh no.
Yeah, I thought it's more.
Thanks for staying. All right. Yeah,
Yes,
where
thank
are
you
you
so much.
based?
I'm from Germany.
Mhm.
I'm 30 years old. Uh, I'm not really the social guy, like you can see with the camera right now, I guess. And but it's important for me to become more social, uh, and most importantly because uh, I'm I found that planet and nature needs us to come together. So I want to be one that can connect the people around me to this common cause for nature and for the planet.
Yeah.
And that's just one aspect.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my goal. Oh,
Beautiful. Oh, you're very welcome here. And yeah, thank you. That is the most important goal, I think. Well, look, how about I dive into just sharing our presentation. Um, the actually got some slides. Robert, they're in that public folder. I've updated them with your new images. Would you be able to find the slides while I'm talking?
Yeah.
They're just in the root of that public folder, and they're shared with everybody. So thank you. All right, so as I mentioned, this is not so much an introduction to ProSocial as it is an introduction to our training packages. So I know that's going to meet Gonzalo's needs, and I'm hoping it'll also meet Renee and Petri's needs as well. So broadly speaking, what I'm hoping to do is introduce some core ideas of ProSocial, introduce each of the courses and how they all fit together. I will just briefly talk about some applications of ProSocial, and then we'll have basically Q&A and an opportunity to, because it is such a small group, if you want to, we can explore your personal situations and how ProSocial might fit in that context. So let me just say a little bit about the ProSocial process. We talk about that in lots and lots of different ways. But one way to talk about it is in terms of intentional cultural evolution, conscious cultural evolution. And as you may know, evolution, or at least Darwinian selection, is based on this idea of selection so increasing variation and then selection and retention of traits that work for the organism in its context. Now that's true for genetics, but it's also just as true for behavior, that we do what works to achieve our explicit or implicit goals. You know that, if one of you in an audience starts smiling at me a lot, I'll tend to start looking at the person who's smiling at me because, basically I'm getting positively reinforced by that behavior. So variation in the context of how we're implementing these ideas in ProSocial, variation is about helping people to think in creative ways that are outside of their limitations or outside of their assumptions, and the sort of expectations and judgments and so forth that get in the way of pro-social positive relationships. So that's about a creative process, if you like, developing awareness of oneself and of others so that we can see alternate perspectives on why they might be doing what they're doing and what might be a possible way of responding. And then selection from our perspective is all about bringing to awareness individual and collective goals and values that then act as a selection mechanism for what whatever behaviors. So basically, we're doing what works to move us towards our purpose. The core design principles are about embedding and sustaining more effective pro-social behaviors with agreements between ourselves to create greater equity or inclusive decision-making or transparency of behavior or conflict resolution or whatever it is, but retaining effective behaviors through creating agreements. Now, all of that has to happen in context. So pro-social is very much about, it's not about a one-size-fits-all. It's about having the diagnostic tools to be able to evaluate what's actually happening in my team or my group and where do I need to intervene to enhance trust and collaboration and connection. And evolution also occurs at multiple levels. So it occurs at the level of the individual, but also at the level of the groups. Groups that cooperate more effectively are more likely to spread their practices to other groups and survive in the long run, as we can see from effective organisations. So variation, selection and retention of pro-social behaviours that work in context and at the right level, at the level of the individual, the group or the whole system. So we've kind of distilled that down into a process which involves at least these 4 pieces. We vary it sometimes depending upon the needs of the environment, but the 4 pieces include building self-awareness and a sense of clarity around personal vision, values and needs, but also emotional self-regulatory capability and the capacity to take the perspective of others. So all of these foundational personal skills are key for then doing the rest of the work, which is at the collective level. You'll notice each of these circles has a little variation, selection and retention cycle around them, because we're really taking seriously this idea of creating greater variability and selecting what works in line with our purpose. The second part of our process is about finding shared vision and values, vision to guide and motivate behaviour, and values to coordinate behaviour. Values being qualities of behaviour, vision being more about goals. So we have various processes for stitching together, weaving together the individual level vision, values and needs into a more collective version of the same thing. Then we use the Ostrom core design principles. I think everybody on the calls, at least I'm not sure about Renee, but I know Gonzalo and Petri are familiar with the core design principles from the pro-social approach, which are based on Elinor Ostrom's Nobel Prize winning work on the commons. And they're just things like equity and transparency and inclusive decision-making and so forth. So we need, once we've got a sense of vision, we need a sense of how do we develop agreements. I guess what differs for us from, maybe more organisational implementations is that our emphasis is very much on working in a shared power way, where people are involved in distributed decision making. And that then transfers through into the last kind of cycle of generating possibilities for action and converging on action through consent-based decision-making or consultative processes like the advice process popularised in the Reinventing Organisations book, for making decisions together in a way that shares power. So one of the things that we've been doing is we've been working, we've had pro-social training for probably about 6 or 7 years now at different levels, and we've taken all the experience we've developed from running well over 30 or 40 courses now online. And we've managed to put together a whole framework, which we're really excited about. And we did a session like this morning, but you all are actually the second group in the entire world to sort of hear about our new framework. So we're pretty excited about it. One thing I will say is that we've sort of got 2 versions of our training. One is the kind of original pro-social, for want of a better term, that is based very firmly in science and evidence. But we have found that we're working with quite a lot of spiritual groups and religious groups. And I would say that, at least for myself, and I know for Robert as well, and for many of us, we feel as though we're at a turning point. I guess every generation says that, but right now it feels like there is going to be profound social and environmental change, whether you call that collapse or whether you call it something else. There's definitely going to be massive change, and our big challenge is going to be staying pro-social in the face of the inevitable stresses of those significant changes that we're encountering right now. And one of the sort of human responses to that is spirituality. And we've had within our organization and within our community, we've had a lot of religious groups, we've had a lot of people that are interested in thinking about pro-sociality and relationships through the lens of unity and universal love, and a lot of the teachings of the contemplative traditions and the what do you call it? The word's escaping me at the moment, but the more the less religiously dogmatic aspects of the world's religions. So throughout this, we have kind of two parallel streams. We have a introductory online course, which we're developing. That's not yet being released, which will be called Introduction to ProSocial. That's an asynchronous course that doesn't involve any face-to-face events. Then we've got, and we've also got a ProSocial spirituality version of that course that's more focused on, talking about it in spiritual terms rather than in scientific terms, I guess. The Becoming ProSocial course that Gonzalo's already done, and I'll introduce each of these in more detail, but this is basically just the aim is to understand, not just in the head, but also experientially, the core ideas and values of ProSocial, the idea of inner work, the idea of the core design principles. And it is learning about them conceptually, but it's also applying them in one's own context. And that's what we're calling certification level 1, Becoming ProSocial graduate. That's that. We then have a facilitator training course, which the original version is called Leading ProSocial. The spirituality version is called Facilitating ProSocial Spirituality. That corresponds to certification level 2. And this is, the aim of this is to actually learn to facilitate ProSocial with a group that you care about. So this is our facilitator training program. And instead of the emphasis being on learning ProSocial, in this course, the emphasis is on learning to facilitate your group well with ProSocial. Once people have graduated from that course, or if they have extensive experience and they've really taken an interest in, say, the book, for instance, there's the opportunity for them to practice their skills by coaching into the ProSocial Action Lab. And the ProSocial Action Lab is our program for intact groups. We've worked with some of the most extraordinary groups of healthcare professionals, environmental groups, social justice groups. In our last program, we had an amazing group of women from Afghanistan who were living in Pakistan and, organizing in response to the Taliban. So we've had some extraordinary groups, plus also more, kind of standard organizational groups and based in the Americas or in Europe. But this is an opportunity for people to really practice their coaching of ProSocial with the support of people like Robert, master coaches who have had heaps of experience with ProSocial. And that's a really, we're not currently charging coaches for that experience, but it's an extraordinary opportunity to be mentored and to work with a group of really highly skilled peers, deepening your practice. And so that's certification level 3 to practice, deepen and expand your pro-social facilitation skills by learning from mentors and peers. Then we have a 4th level, which is after having done all that, or you can kind of potentially, if you've done any one of these courses, you can jump straight to this if you've got enough experience. And that's what we're calling level 4, and a certified pro-social world facilitator. And this is where we invite you to simply report on a case study of a independent application of pro-social that you've done. And we work with you to, you submit a little work sample of you facilitating, and then we work with you. There's a process there which we're still developing, but is going to be not just for the purposes of assessment, but also for learning as well, that will allow people to become a certified pro-social world facilitator. Then from that pool, we invite people, because we're trying to scale and increase our reach in different languages and in different regions, we invite people then to come and start teaching these courses, becoming and leading for us as a representative of pro-social world. Now, at the heart of this beautiful figure that Robert's created is our pro-social world community of practice. So as soon as anyone's done the Becoming course, or any course Becoming and above, they're eligible to join our community of practice. And that's a peer-based group that we're just really getting started again. It used to run quite successfully, but then it's been in hiatus for a little while, and we're just getting started with it again. So let me just briefly talk about each of these courses, and I won't say much. Becoming Pro-Social, as said, introductory course. It's in the format of a really quite detailed online learning experience, and maybe Gonzalo might want to comment on that. There's 7 90-minute live sessions that are offered weekly over 7 weeks. And the idea is to build up a peer-based cohort of experience of people that are sort of approaching the materials together. So you get to, practice with doing the matrix on yourself, and practice with talking about the core design principles and so forth. I won't put you on the spot, Gonzalo, but I know that you...
It's okay if you want to put me on the spot, but
okay, I will then. Would you like to say anything or no about the course? You've just finished it.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful course. It's beautifully facilitated. It's quite experiential, so it's great because I have highly recommended you do the lessons before you join the course. I mean the sessions. The online platform is friendly, easy to understand, very comprehensive. It's a really high quality. I loved it. So excellent. And yeah, and it seems like everyone is in the same sure purpose or interest. So it's very easy to communicate with your with everyone on the cohort. So yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks so much, Gonzalo. That's really helpful. So to give you a sense of the sort of topics that we cover, and I will describe these because we hold the same broad topics all the way through. These 4 here are the 4 circles that I've already described to you of psychological adaptability, or psychological flexibility, as it's called in acceptance and commitment training, finding shared vision and values, using the core design principles, and converging on shared action. But to that, we add a beginning piece. The first one is about leading with shared power. So in this first module, we're emphasizing you as a leader, but also beginning, we didn't do this so much in your cohort, Gonzalo, but I'm now strengthening this piece to talk more about shared power and the difference between power over and power with, because power is an absolute key. There's really a couple of big ideas that run through all our training, and one of them is about sharing power and the challenges of that from a psychological perspective, but also from a practical organizational perspective. And then we've got this other piece around having more pro-social conversations that involve good listening, but also good sharing of purposeful information, and how best to do that. Because we found that this piece about having conversations is a beautiful introduction to going inside and then looking at the conversation that you're having with yourself. Because it's for many people, it's actually easier to listen carefully to others, listen compassionately to others, than it is to listen compassionately to themselves. So this is all kind of inner work, and then these three pieces are very much about working together in the group. All right, so let me move on. I'll talk through all of that. The leading pro-social course is our facilitator training. It's online again, same materials, same sort of basic structure, but this time we're coming at the materials that more from the perspective of you already know the concepts, and now how are you going to facilitate this with your group? So the practical aspects of actually leading matrices in groups, or running core design principles surveys with groups. And a real feature of this course is that you get quite a lot of individual attention. We've capped the classes at 12 people per instructor, so that each instructor can give individualized coaching for, like, basically the way it works is we have the introductory session around you as a facilitator, identifying your strengths and development areas. And then we have a session around your facilitation context and kind of mapping the unique challenges of your context. But in that session, we're also deciding, of the 12 folks, how are you going to divide up to facilitate these next 5 sessions? And it might be that, let's say, Gonzalo and Petri decide to work together on, creating shared purpose and identity. So they'll take that week, and they're responsible for actually facilitating a chunk of the session that week as a role play or a exercise or whatever it is that they want to practice. And then they get, they do the facilitation, they get really detailed feedback and coaching, and then we introduce the following week's content. And then in between that session and the next session, whoever's facilitating the next week has a one-on-one coaching session, or so Gonzalo and Petri would meet with Robert in advance of their session to have a coaching session that supports them in creating a really great experience that will be supportive for the whole group, because we really want it to be a peer-based learning, but we want it to be at a very high quality. So then I mentioned the ProSocial Action Lab. This kind of has 2 faces. I've already talked to you about how the coaches can use it as an opportunity to practice their skills, but it's also really, really helpful for groups that want to enhance their trust and collaboration. So if you have an intact group that you want to work with, but you'd like to do that in a supported way, then bringing that group along to the ProSocial Action Lab is a really fantastic way to do that, because as a coach, you would be able to be supported each week by a mentor like Robert. So the structure of this is 4 plenary sessions and then 8 coaching sessions where either one or more coaches work with the group. And it's not, I want to stress that it's not just like delivering pro-social in a linear fashion. This program is about sensing into what are the group's needs. And the group might just want to work on psychological flexibility, or just work on finding shared purpose, or even work on things that, that are unique to their particular context, like relationships to authority or something. But we'll do it through the lens of pro-social. And so the idea there is to really, that's how an evolutionary framework has to work, is in response to the needs of the particular group. So yeah, we have a couple of plenary sessions and then team coaching as needed through all of these elements, and then a sharing and celebration sessions at the end, which are really, we learn, I think it's true to say, Robert, I'll pass to you in a second, but is it true to say that we still have participatory video as part of the experience?
Yeah, definitely. It's and even more than that. I mean, some groups want to more formally research the nature of the change that they're striving to facilitate. So we've developed a suite of tools that participants can actually choose to access. The coaches can actually take to them, and they can evaluate levels of psychological flexibility, their capacity to implement the CDPs, as well as other measures. There's kind of a standard suite of measures that we recommend to people, but also participatory video. So we invite folk to make a video at the beginning, the groups, outlining what's the change they're striving for, and then at the end, make another one and speak about the difference that they managed to make in the world as a result of this process.
Awesome. And Robert's actually raised a key point, which I haven't really emphasized, that we've now developed a very powerful sort of suite of measurement tools that associated with automated reporting as well, that you get to use as part of these training experiences. So that's important. Now, I mentioned pro-social spirituality. The key, I guess, difference here is that the pro-social spirituality stream introduces these 9 what are called interspiritual elements, developed by a gentleman called Wayne Teasdale, who was looking at the commonalities across all contemplative aspects, at least, of religion, and developed these 9 kind of elements, if you like. And they're really just a different lens of looking at our essential interconnectedness, the importance of inner transformation, and ways in which we can socially engage in a way that privileges more spiritual values than, for example, commercial capitalist values. Robert, did you want to add anything in relation to pro-social spirituality?
Only to say that the underpinning change, I think, in my experience, because I mean I've been a part of developing and facilitating both these suites of courses to a significant degree. The pro-social spirituality course itself invites people to facilitate processes in the same way as what the leading pro-social course does, but the facilitation is more contemplative in nature and designed to build circles of trust. And it really pulls for an orientation toward the ineffable, the mystery, and to be sensitive and responsive to that, but again in very pragmatic ways. And it really is. It's a weaving together of what we've inherited in all the wisdom traditions, but it's very forward-looking as well. It's asking really important questions about what would it like if we transcended these boundaries and mainstream spirituality, in ways that actually matter. And so also very powerful and transformative, of course, suite of programs. And interestingly, I mean, I'm probably like you folk, in conversation with many about the importance of this work. It's like you, Petri, and Gonzalo, in professional contexts, healthcare, what high level, business investment strategies and those kind of things. And they are more overtly speaking about the importance of weaving into it a spiritual dimension to this work, and responding in concert with the natural laws of nature and those kind of things. So it really is becoming more mainstream and in all contexts. It's very interesting, this occurrence.
Yeah. So at this stage where, it appeals to some people, it doesn't appeal to everybody. And we're just giving the option of this is not really the language that we use in our original form of pro-social, but it is something that we recognize that's deeply important at this time of profound change. So look, I don't think I'll spend too long on this because I really want to cut over to Q&A and learn more about your context. But just to give you a bit of a sense of some of the international contexts that we've worked if you've read the ProSocial book, you'll know that about this work. This is some of the original work done by Beate Ebert and Hannah Balkery and others on working with communities to find alternate ways to respond to the Ebola virus. And that was profoundly successful. I've been working with schools, I and many others have been working with schools. This is a beautiful school in Sydney that operates in a very collaborative way, but wanted to enhance their collaboration even further and adopted some of the pro-social principles. Political groups, healthcare services, working with teams of doctors aligning around chronically ill patients. Robert particularly led a program in Latin America, working with a variety of different groups that were networking to support one another in their work and environmental spaces and social justice and education. Robert in particular has done a lot of work with governments and policy forming groups throughout Australia, Asia and the Pacific. This is some positive results from over a 5-year period between 2014 and 2019 for massive improvements in satisfaction, pride, attachment to the agency and so forth from some of the work that he did. And so that's really our presentation. It occurs to me that one extra thing that I don't have in the slides, if you go to our website, prosocial.world, you'll see courses. And if you scroll down there a little bit, you'll see that we've got 2 offerings of becoming pro-social, one starting in January and one in April, I think. And then we've also got 2 offerings of leading pro-social, one starting in March and the other starting in April. For the becoming courses, there's 2 cohorts, and so there'll be one cohort probably that suits your time zone better. For leading pro-social, we're just offering 1 cohort in each of those, and I'll tell you now that the April one is the one that you would probably want if you're based in Europe, because the March one would be in the middle of your night, I imagine. If you haven't done becoming, it's a good idea to do becoming in advance, because that gives you familiarity with those 6 modules that I mentioned, from a sort of more familiarity with the framework. But it is possible if you've already got a lot of facilitation experience, or you've really taken a deep dive into the book, then you can jump straight into the leading pro-social program if you wish to. So with that, I'd like to just stop and see if anyone has any questions or comments about all of that.
Thank you. It was very interesting to see the whole program that you are offering. And if I understood correctly, the Becoming Pro-Social is starting in January, a new course.
Yes.
How about I think the times were okay for Europeans.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, the January Becoming, they'll definitely, because there's 2 cohorts running at the same time, one of them will certainly suit Europeans. Yeah. Okay.
And it consists, was it six seminars or?
7 live sessions. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we have the 6 modules plus a sort of review and celebration at the end.
What was the cost for that course?
It's $450 US.
Okay. I think I'm going to sign in, so.
Very good. Wonderful. Gonzalo, did you have all your questions answered about, have you got a sense of what your next steps might be?
I think I'll jump into leading pro-social.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and perfect, because I'll be in the community, living there, and also working with ambassador program. So I need this perfect way. I think it's gonna be just matches what
Excellent.
I need. Probably gonna have another friend of mine doing the Becoming Pro-Social, so we are having the same language at least.
Yeah, great.
Mm.
And Robert will be running another ProSocial Action Lab in August. So maybe by then you'll be ready to.
Maybe I'll jump into the next one, but one step at a time.
Yeah, yeah. Of course. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
This
I mean,
also kind of inspired me that you were mentioning that you have been using this a lot with education. I have a friend that used to be in the same courses with me in Finland, and he is a specialist in education here in Finland. So I might be contacting him and try to, inspire him to join with me to your first course. So
That sounds wonderful. Although having me teaching Finns about how to do education sounds like taking coals to Newcastle. It sounds, I think they are the experts.
yeah, but that's why it would be interesting to involve him to
Yes,
your,
of course.
program so that you have a contact here in Finland. So
Yeah. No, that would be wonderful because I think a lot of what you already do in Finland is very, very aligned with what we're talking about very
yeah,
naturally. We get a lot of interest from people in all of the Nordic countries, really.
yeah, there's a growing community who are starting to self-organize, to work in specific sectors. The two that are emerging at the moment are business and investment strategy work, to try and change that so that business is more generative and sensitive to the needs of the environment, as well as investment strategies. The other area is more socially oriented. So I've had a few calls recently with uh, psychologists, who have set up organizations, and they've recognized there's a growing demand for their work, and they're realizing that just working with individuals, as they've historically done, is not all that's needed, and they need to be able to help people function more effectively within their social context. It's very interesting, so I'm sure it's and there's a lot we keep learning from each other. I can imagine as we move down this track, you'll very quickly get to know folk who are working in your part of the world with what we're sharing, and who knows what'll emerge. Yeah.
what I started thinking now is that Finland is at the moment one of the leading countries in remote working. And actually, that has become a problem in Finland. That after the pandemic, people got used to work from home, and they don't come to the offices anymore. So they don't meet each other, and that is really becoming a problem in developing company cultures, or sharing information, or getting support when you are feeling, tired and anxious. So you don't have anymore the community to support you. And that we have been discussing that a lot in Finland, that it is really becoming a problem. So
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? It's like the pendulum swinging, isn't it, back and forward? We experience the same thing a bit in Australia.
yeah.
I know my children who are in lockdown, for months. They're still experiencing the trauma from that, and struggling to socialize again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sense that as well. There's a lot of increased anxiety, social anxiety, and avoidant behaviors in general.
Yeah.
in people.
I'd be interested. I mean, Gonzalo, I mean, you're shifting to another part of the world. I mean, I'm assuming that you haven't lived there before. Is that right?
No, I haven't. I was born and raised in Argentina, and then I moved to Spain 10 years ago.
Okay.
I did my specialty here, and then I did other things, and then I am moving to another part of the world,
Wow.
to Sweden.
Yeah.
Call upon the social impact movement that is happening there.
Really important. Sounds like inspiring work and a kind of a bit of a blank canvas moment for you. An opportunity to
Yeah, it
read
is.
yourself. Yeah.
I'm shifting my career basically. I'm going from medical practice and seeing really sick people uh,
Mm.
into working with communities. And
Yeah, wow. So what's
quite curious.
inspired
I have
that?
no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what's drawn you to that?
Hmm. That's a good coaching question.
Mm.
Uh, what's drawing you to that? Um, hmm. The two things that are coming up for me right now. Uh, First is the natural tendency that I have since I'm very little of I'm very gregarious. I'm easily create communities and group.
Mm.
Um, um, I like the vision of a circle. I like the vision of
Mm.
things happening in a circle, and that's probably a common pattern for me since I can remember. Uh,
Mm.
Quite tribal. I
Yeah, right.
like groups, so that was probably more intrinsically embedded in me, in my genes and my the epigenetics that I
Yeah,
have.
right, right.
And then the other thing is that I've I didn't know what to study when I was studying, and I did this sort of like psychological assessment to see what was the best suited career, and the psychotherapist, the person who said, we don't know what's for you. You can do
Mm.
business, you can do
Mm.
you can be an astronaut. Literally, the answer was astronaut.
Right.
And I studied medicine because I thought it was my sort of like
Mm.
career. And then I did well, and I realized when I was in the hospital that something wasn't working for me. I was more
Mm.
in the social side and the more humanistic side.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would really like the bedside with talking to my patients. And I felt that it was more the impact that I was making there than rather than treating the disease. Uh,
Mm.
is. And
Yeah, yeah.
so I realized that was more important for me. And throughout my 15 years of practice as a doctor, because I'm 39, well, almost 50 years, I realized that, yeah, that's what I like. But it's been
Mm.
hard for me to switch from one traditional career into this new one that I have no idea what's going to look like.
Yeah, wow. So it sounds like a real shift more toward whole person healthcare that is socially embedded.
Yeah,
Yeah, kind of and reweaving our social fabric, as the thing that actually nurtures us.
yeah,
Getting away
correct.
from the yeah, down the generative end of the continuum. Yeah, good on you, mate. I mean, it's great. It's
Thank you.
so sorely needed.
Yeah, it is needed. It is needed. So and
Yeah.
that's what I see, and then it comes so natural for me. So and yeah, it's another way of helping supporting the healing process, maybe in
Mm, yeah,
a
yeah,
more
yeah,
different way, but it is.
yeah,
You think of us as a community or as a group of people, we are a system, working
yeah,
system.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, so
And
yeah,
I'm curious, I mean, I know when Paul and I met David and we were introduced to the behavioral sciences, a lot of it was just really intuitive. So I'm kind of curious for you, having been introduced to what we introduced to and we packaged now, what's resonating with you as being a, an enabler, around
what's resonating
playfulness,
in resonate from ProSocial,
yeah, pro-social, yeah, and the principles and things.
the principles. Well, I think this is the book that I have read so many times already, and I
Yeah,
have this notes that I have to buy another one.
yeah,
Um, it's so pure, as in it's so it feels true. It feels like, wow, this is
yeah, right.
this sounds
So
very true to me. This what's the word? It's like essential truth, like a very essential truth, like a very much distilled process. And actually, if you stick with the for the first principle, you have a whole life work to do ahead.
I think you just
don't aim
start
for
fresh.
all of them, just aim for one.
Yeah, I think you just start fresh every day, don't you?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think
that's amazing. That's all right. I'm wondering, Petri, what's occurring to you?
I just wonder if we could make a bit of space for Renee if he would like to speak.
Oh yeah,
Just want to
Renee, yeah,
check.
of course.
Renee, is there anything you'd like to ask or say?
Oh, I'd rather like to listen. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Just wanted to make space for it. Back to you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So what's occurring to you, Petri? I'm interested.
Sorry, can you repeat your question, please?
What's your brand of magic? What's the difference you're going to make in the world? You've told us kind of the surface of it, but what's really at the heart of the change you want to?
The heart of what impact do I want to make? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yourself.
what I liked about your approach, the pro-social approach, is that it kind of integrates the individual values to the group values. So it provides the tool to work with the individuals, but then also with the group. And in the foundation is the matrix. So it is providing what I see is that it is providing me the tool to work with both with individuals and groups.
Yeah.
And if I think about, I said that I'm planning to open a coaching service that I start providing coaching. And I have a business background. I've studied in the university. I studied business and like you said that in the business world we have these very cold values. So the impact that I would like to maybe give is that I start giving back and introducing softer values. And if I think about the target group that I'm going to target and offer my services, it is people with commercial background working in the commercial environment, also other entrepreneurs. So what I hope to give as an impact is this, that in the world that I've been experiencing almost 30 years, that I would be able to introduce these values that you are representing, or the solution focused world and the positive psychology is representing, that helping people to cope in this colder working environment.
Yeah. I'd love you to meet some folk we know who are in your part of the world, Germany and England, who are very much oriented toward business. Like they're kind of thinking, gosh, if business can make a shift where it's regenerative and it's actually oriented toward the health and well-being of the worker, rather than extractive. Huge. Some of them are wanting to change the paradigm, but others are just wanting to help local folk, get food on the table. And so but it's very like regenerative, looking after the environment and recycling and returns to the community. It was lovely thinking. So I'd love you to meet some of these folk in time, because you're speaking their language and they're asking beautiful questions about their view is that if business could change, it would have one of the biggest impacts out of all the sectors. Yeah.
I'm also interested in, you mentioned in the spirituality keynote that the idea of non-violation, because I'm also a workplace mediator. I've studied mediation, so I became kind of interested in how to use your approach in mediation also.
Yeah, right.
So that is interesting. So
yeah, I mean you've
I've
done
done a
lot
lot of work in conflict resolution and non-violent communication and so forth. And I do think that that's a good. I mean, just basically tools like the matrix and so on, which you might already be familiar with, enormously useful in conflict resolution work. I've used it many, many times to have people not only do their own matrix, but then to imagine the matrix of another person and what they might be thinking and feeling and reacting to. But also, I think the core design principles are pointers to helping to diagnose where the sources of conflict are arising from, the sort of basic human needs. Sometimes I think of the core design principles as being reflective of our basic psychological needs for things like self-determination, belonging, agency and self-efficacy, meaning. You know, these are not arbitrary needs. These are needs that have been shown to be common to people all around the world. And I think Ostrom's genius was to kind of distill ways of being with one another that meet these basic needs in ways that I'm afraid shareholder-based capitalism just isn't, and consumerism isn't. So yeah, it's hopeful.
Yeah.
Well, we're at time and I want to honor the time. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you so much.
Greatly look forward to working with you all in the future.
Beautiful. Just Paul, do you mind if I ask a question? Is that to apply to leading ProSocial, do you need to go through the webpage and stuff?
Oh yeah, I should have said that. Yeah, please do. There's an application form there. We're taking applications for leading ProSocial, and yeah, if you submit that, we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much. It was nice meeting you.
Yeah,
Nice
yeah,
meeting
go
you,
well.
Renee, too.
Yep, yep,
Bye.
Renee.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
Yeah.
all.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
you too.
Christmas. Bye-bye.
You too.